2,600 kilometers. That's how far a ballistic missile traveled today to reach something the Pentagon never admitted was vulnerable. I'm Kane Shimatsuka, and what just happened over Bahrain isn't a headline you scroll past. It's a mathematical proof that the entire American security architecture in the Gulf is built on assumptions that no longer hold. A Houthi ballistic missile struck at the headquarters of the United States Navy's 5th Fleet today. Bahrain confirmed it. The Pentagon issued statements. CENTCOM said the threat was engaged. 3 governments projecting calm. Not one addressed what actually changed. What changed has nothing to do with whether the intercept succeeded. It has everything to do with what that flight path just proved to every planner between Tehran and Beijing. Here's what nobody is saying. The Houthis didn't fire at a cargo ship in open water. They didn't target a destroyer with layered defenses. They fired at the building where the United States commands every naval operation from the Suez Canal to the Indian Ocean. Naval Support Activity Bahrain. 9,000 American personnel on an island smaller than New York City, 200 kilometers from Iran. And a militia the Pentagon claimed to have degraded just sent a missile 1,600 kilometers to America's most critical Gulf installation. Let me show you the problem with that word, degraded. The United States has conducted hundreds of strikes on Houthi positions over 18 months. Tomahawks at $2 million per round. JDAMs from B-2 bombers costing $150,000 per hour. Strikes on radar sites, storage, launch positions, command nodes. The Pentagon used one term, degrading Houthi capability. Spokespeople said strikes significantly reduced their ability to threaten regional targets. Today, a Houthi missile flew 1,600 kilometers to the airspace above America's most important Middle East naval installation. Both statements cannot be true. Either the degradation assessment was accurate and the Houthis reconstituted faster than anticipated, or the assessment was never accurate. That's not a discrepancy. That's a structural problem in how the United States communicates military outcomes to its citizens. I need you to understand what NSA Bahrain is because it's not a satellite office. It's the central nervous system of American maritime power across 2.5 million square miles. 5th Fleet responsibility, Suez Canal through Red Sea, Arabian Sea, Strait of Hormuz, Persian Gulf, into northwestern Indian Ocean. Every carrier strike group in the Gulf operates under 5th Fleet Command. Every destroyer running missile defense reports to Jafar. The intelligence center tracking every Hormuz vessel transit, all coordinated from that base. That base sits on 1.5 million people, 765 square kilometers, connected to Saudi Arabia by one causeway. Bahrain isn't a continent with strategic depth. It's a small island where Iranian anti-ship missiles can reach any point from shore. And now Houthi ballistic missiles reach it from 1,600 kilometers south. 5th Fleet headquarters is inside a threat envelope from 2 directions: Iran northeast, Yemen southwest. That convergence is new. It wasn't reality 5 years ago, and it changes defensive calculus in extremely expensive ways, which brings me to economics. This is where actual strategy lives. Not military capability, cost. A Houthi missile costs $20,000 to $200,000. Even at the ceiling, that's less than a single interceptor the U.S. fires. Real numbers: Standard Missile 2 costs $2.1 million, SM-6 costs $4.3 million, Patriot Pac-3 runs $4 million, THAAD costs $12 to $15 million per shot, Attacker spends $200,000, Defender spends $4 million, that's 20 to 1s in favor of the Attacker. Every engagement, every Houthi missile, whether it hits, gets intercepted, or falls into ocean, costs the U.S. 10 to 20 times more to defeat. That's not a military problem you bomb your way out of, that's economics. And it compounds because Houthi costs stay flat, while U.S. interceptor inventory is finite, expensive, produced on lines already stretched supplying Ukraine and preparing for Taiwan. Destroyers in the Red Sea expended hundreds of interceptors over 18 months. An Arleigh Burke carries 90 to 96 missiles in vertical launch cells. Ships returned with magazines nearly empty, requiring months of rearming. At $2.5 million average per engagement, the U.S. spent over $1 billion defending against weapons that collectively cost less than a mid-range American home. When $50,000 forces $4 million response, you're not in military confrontation, you're in a math problem, and the United States is on the wrong side. Now let me show you the escalation ladder because today's attack reveals a pattern visible for over a year to anyone watching the sequencing. The Houthis didn't begin by firing at American installations. They started with commercial cargo ships, bulk carriers, and container vessels transiting Bab al-Mandab, ships with no escort, no defense, slow targets in narrow waters. That was the first rung. Second rung, attacking commercial ships near U.S. naval escorts. This forced American warships to engage, to expend interceptors, to shift from power projection to point defense mode. Third rung, firing at the warships themselves, the USS Carney, USS Mason, USS Gravely. American combatants engaged missiles aimed directly at their hulls. This is where it crossed into armed conflict against the U.S. military. Fourth rung was today, not a warship at sea with speed, maneuverability, and combat systems designed for exactly this threat. A fixed installation on land, the headquarters of a numbered fleet, a target that cannot maneuver, cannot relocate, cannot be hidden. Each rung represents deliberate escalation in target value and strategic messaging. Each rung climbed only after the Houthis calculated the American response to the previous one was insufficient to deter the next. The United States struck Yemen after Houthis attacked shipping. The Houthis kept firing. The U.S. struck again after they targeted warships. The Houthis kept firing. The pattern is straightforward. American airstrikes have not altered Houthi targeting behavior. They've absorbed that lesson completely. And today's missile is what acting on that lesson looks like. The question every planner at CENTCOM headquarters is asking right now, what sits on the fifth rung? There is a fifth rung. I'm not speculating about specific targets, but escalation ladders have internal logic, and the logic doesn't terminate today. Today was proof of concept, range demonstrated, intent demonstrated, access to American airspace above the Gulf's most critical installation demonstrated. What comes next depends on the next 72 to 96 hours. And timing matters because this missile didn't arrive in a vacuum. It arrived while American and Iranian negotiators exchanged proposals in Geneva through Omani intermediaries. 5 American demands: zero enrichment, permanent restrictions, physical dismantlement of nuclear sites, all enriched uranium transferred to American soil, minimal sanctions relief, Iranian counterproposal, 3 to 5 year suspension, followed by 1.5% enrichment in a regional consortium. The distance between those positions isn't a gap more talks can close. It's structural incompatibility. And into that incompatibility, a ballistic missile flew 1,600 kilometers from one of the poorest countries on Earth and arrived over the headquarters of the region's most powerful naval force. The Houthis are serious fighters. They've survived a decade against a Saudi coalition backed by American intelligence and munitions. But the decision to escalate from maritime targets to the command headquarters of a U.S.-numbered fleet isn't a tactical call made by a militia commander in Sana'a. That's a strategic decision with implications reaching far beyond Yemen. Strategic decisions at that escalation level, decisions risking massive American military response, are made by people with clear understanding of what that risk buys at the negotiating table. The missile launched from Yemen. The crew was Houthi. But the guidance technology, the targeting data, the strategic timing during Geneva talks with 2 carrier strike groups in the Gulf and F-22s on Israeli runways, that timing was chosen by people who understand a missile doesn't need to destroy its target to deliver its message. The message, we can reach you, not at sea where ships maneuver, not in transit where escorts provide cover, at home, at the base where your admirals work and your operations center tracks every Gulf vessel. We can reach that place with a proxy weapon launched from a country you've bombed for 18 months without result. And if we can reach it from Yemen, consider what we can reach from the Iranian coastline 30 miles away. That's the message. The intended audience isn't the Fifth Fleet commander. It's the team that returned from Geneva carrying 5 demands Iran has no pathway to accepting. One more piece, no official statement addressed. Bahrain didn't choose this. Bahrain signed a defense agreement with the United States in 1991, hosted the Fifth Fleet from 1995, was designated a major non-NATO ally in 2002, normalized relations with Israel under Abraham Accords in 2020. At every step, the assumption was identical. Proximity to American military power provides security. Hosting the fleet makes the island safer. As of this morning, hosting the Fifth Fleet makes Bahrain a ballistic missile target. The asset supposed to guarantee Bahraini security became the reason families woke to air raid warnings over their capital. Manama is a city. Schools, hospitals, apartment towers, shopping districts within potential debris radius of an intercepted missile. People living there didn't vote on whether their island should serve as frontline position in a U.S.-Iran confrontation they didn't start and can't influence. Every other Gulf state with American boots on its soil is running identical calculations tonight. Qatar with Al Udeid, Kuwait with Camp Arifjan, UAE with Al Dhafra, Oman with logistics agreements, each watching Bahrain and asking, does hosting American forces make us safer, or does it paint targets on our capitals in a war between Washington and Tehran we can't control and have no seat to negotiate? The Pentagon will brief today as successful intercept, missile engaged, no damage, no casualties. As far as it goes, that's accurate. But successful intercept isn't the metric determining whether this posture is sustainable. The metric that matters, can the United States maintain continuous missile defense over a fixed Bahrain base, plus carrier air defense in the Gulf, plus Red Sea shipping protection, plus Mediterranean presence, while sustaining interceptor production for Western Pacific contingencies indefinitely against an adversary whose entire model makes defense more expensive than attack? That's the equation. And the equation doesn't balance. The Houthis fired the missile. Iran designed the strategy. America is paying the bill. What flew over Bahrain today wasn't just a missile. It was a cost curve, a strategic message, and a negotiating position, all traveling at Mach 8. Every government between Cairo and Beijing received it at exactly the same time. The only question left is whether Washington understood what it actually meant. I'm Kane Shimatsuka. The future doesn't announce itself with press releases. It announces itself with trajectories, and today's trajectory just redrew every assumption about who controls escalation in the Gulf. Share this if you understand that the math stopped working the moment that missile entered Bahraini airspace, because the people making decisions either see what I see or they're about to learn it the expensive way.